Welcome to the first annual Brain Capital at the Capitol training event. We are so excited to have you here, those with us in the live class and those viewing later on. We are all about your brain. And one big thing about your brain is making sure you're in an environment, in a city, in a state, in a nation, and in a world that cares about your brain and cares about the systems that influence your brain. And one way to do that is to make sure that you know how to use your voice and how to engage with your leadership in the certain levels that you are living in and flourishing in. And so we're honored to just put this class together. This is the first section of two classes in this Brain Capital at Your Capital event. The whole movement that we are starting in the year of 2026 is on World Brain Day. We're asking you, all our young people, seasoned people, everyone from all walks of life, to engage with your capital leadership around July 22nd. March is a big brain health awareness month, and so is September with the Alzheimer's awareness. But World Brain Day is July 22nd. And so we are going to our capital physically in Phoenix, Arizona this year, but we're asking you to just try to engage with your government leadership. It could be an email, it could be a phone, it could be an actual meeting, or even doing something really big and creating an advocacy day. So we're going to be talking about different ways. Some of you are at different levels of engaging with your government leadership. Some of you just went to class in the fourth grade and learned a few things and haven't really thought about it since. And some of you have been very active, where you may even, that may be even your job. You're actually a lobbyist and this is what you do for a living. So on the whole spectrum, this course is from you, because we're going to be giving some just new ideas for you to be raising your voice and making sure that whatever cause you have is heard. So for those of you watching the replay, get your notebooks out and get ready to take some great notes. And there's also going to be some reflection time. So you'll be able to pause the video, respond to some questions, and really think about your role and your position in whatever you stand for. So but before that, I want to just get our guest speakers online. First, we have Dr.Krystal Cullen. She'll be doing a small presentation about brain health. She is on my board for Lyrics and Leadership for Brain Health, and a wonderful wealth of information. Dr. Krystal, can you come on and say hi when you can?
Hello.
And just introduce yourself.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm excited to be here today as a partner for this event. My name is Krystal. I am the founder and creative director at the Virtual Brain Health Center, where we are your one-stop space for understanding brain health science and what you can do for your personal brain care. So I will be laying some foundation about what is brain health and why does it matter for today's conversation.
Thank you so much. And we also have the director and founder of the Mind Initiative, Manasvi, and she is here. She's going to talk a little bit later on, but say a quick hi and introduce yourself, please.
Hi everybody, my name's Manasvi Sharma and I am a high school junior and I am interested and I am a public health advocate. I am also the founder and director of the Mind Initiative, which is a youth-led organization on preventative mental and brain health education. Today I'd like to share the problem that inspired our work, why I believe prevention is a missing piece, and just overall empowering young people and helping them strengthen brain capital in our communities.
So we are so excited to have you here. So thank you so much for that. So you will hear from both of them later on in the class, and just keep a lookout for their work. Please sign up for both of their websites, and they can give more information on how to connect them. And we'll have that in the notes as well. So let's get started. How do you know about your brain, love your brain, but also bring these issues to your government leadership so you can shape policy? And I love the fact that Manasvi is here because that shows that this isn't just a an adult, issue. This involves all of us. So what does it mean to be someone who's young, even late elementary school, to high school, to college, or early adulthood, and even those in their senior years. So awesome. Okay. Can you confirm that you just see the slideshow?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, so you don't see my notes at all. Awesome, awesome. All right. So, brain
Oh, we
capital.
can't see the notes. We can see both of them.
Okay, so we just want to make sure that I just want to show the slideshow. Do
Yeah,
you
okay, it's good
see
now.
that? But do you see my face at all?
Yeah, like on the Zoom, yes.
Yes, on the Zoom. Okay, great. So hopefully that is wonderful. I just want to make sure that's great. Awesome. So let's get started. This is the Brain Capital at the Capital training event, the first of the two courses or two class segments, Raising Your Voice for Policy Change in Brain Health. So one thing you should know is that your brain is a diamond. You are multifaceted, right? There's so many elements of the way that you think, the way you emote, your emotion, the way you process information, the way you perceive reality, right? And the way another person may perceive reality, which may be different than yours. The field of neuroscience has exploded in the past decade or so. And what we knew when I was in elementary school is way different than what we know now. And so you being aware of equipping yourself and your community with this brain information is critical and timely. So I thank you so much for being here and for watching that. This is the era of the brain. My son and I, we go around the nation speaking on this and engaging families in brain health and brain education. But this is also the era of AI, something that I didn't have to deal with when I was in my childhood is what people are having to address now. And so what does it look like to be able to flourish, to be able to really grow and develop our humanistic skills, our creativity, curiosity, skills that we'll be talking about a little bit later on in the age of AI? And what does it look like to bring some of these concerns to our government leadership? So a little bit of background about me. I'm an educator by trade. I taught 15 plus years in elementary education. I started a nonprofit for my graduates of my elementary school. They went from 6th grade to 12th grade, and we will come back and talk about these things: creativity, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and things along these lines. I also taught at the California State University Northridge for teachers who are getting their masters on how to incorporate brain health, creative thinking, artistic thinking into the curriculum. And I sat on several boards, including DonorsChoose.org, which is a national board. Pretty powerhouse people on this board. But this being in this world of teaching young children to teenagers, working at the collegiate level and serving on boards with like the CEO of LinkedIn and senior vice presidents of Facebook and things like that. It just gave me an interesting perspective on what are the true qualities that we all need to be successful in all areas of life. And so one quality is being able to present our concerns and our voices to our government leadership. And so we are talking about brain capital. What is brain capital? Some of you may know this term. Some of you, this may be new. Brain capital is the combination of brain health and brain skills. Okay? Brain health and brain skills. And they have two of those sections. So for brain skills, we're looking at adaptability, Goals, being able to set goals. There's a lot of research coming out with your attention and now attachment, right? With AI and how AI is influencing our ability to attach to one another. Social skills, emotional behavior control, self-awareness, empathy, and of course, what my research is in, creative thinking, right? So brain capital consists of your ability to have these brain skills that you see listed there. The other side of the coin, which some of your causes could be connected to, is brain health, right? What does it mean to have a healthy brain? Even if you're dealing with any type of brain disorders or things like that, what does it mean to still be on the trajectory of health, no matter where you are on that health continuum? So we have higher numbers in things like general anxiety, depression, and even dementia numbers are rising. And so we're finding out, as she mentioned, and she'll talk more about, that prevention happens throughout the lifespan. We don't want to wait till the end of life. So what does it mean to talk about this in under the umbrella of brain capital, and not just pushing off the possibility of these diseases or brain or disorders, but how do we also look at it from the proactive position and build cognitive reserve, build brain strength from the first day, even before the first day of life? And so that's what this is all about. There's more courses and more classes that we're all doing about this, but today is how do we bring this to our government leaders? So the importance, this is brain capital, so you have this background. And as I said, right now, AI and robotics, machine learning, and all of that area is coming up quick, exponentially. So now your creativity and you presenting your position on healthy, strong brains with creative thinking to your governmental leadership is critical now more than ever. Sadly, social media came on board around 2007. We're just now seeing legislation and policy and rules about it now. There's a few schools who are implementing screen free or phone free schools, phone free days. There's a few laws and rule and guidelines coming out about that. But it's been 20 years, so we don't want that to happen with AI. We need guardrails and guidelines and education around this sooner than later. And the faster we can get it into policy and not wait two decades, the better. And so that's another reason why we're doing this course with you, because creative thinking takes energy, and it's all about the brain and your mind, body, brain, spirit connection. And so protecting that as AI comes up. AI is neutral. You can use it for some great things, but you can also, it also has some negative effects on cognitive processing and creativity. So this is why we need governmental awareness and policy making right now. We were able to share this with the United Nations Brain Days event, and what we shared was the 7 pillars of really creating a strong brain, like sleep, your nutrition, your ability to handle stress. There's good stress and negative stress, like chronic stress, and how to know the difference between both. Your ability to have relationships, right? AI will be affecting and influencing our relational progress, so we need to be very mindful of that. Movement, exercise, dance, tai chi, things like those that affect the brain and the cerebellum, creativity, and brain arts. And so we're looking at what creates a flourishing brain and how do we put that into policy for our governmental leadership, because this is the era of AI, so we need the government to be aware. One of our books that we are coming out with very soon is The Brain Symphony, and there's your 7 pillars. But what we also need to understand is this is a systems level change. So those 7 pillars deal with your individual interaction with brain health, right? Like you should go to sleep, right? That's not really a citywide or nation concern of your sleep patterns. But what is a citywide and nation concern? Maybe noise pollution. Maybe there's 10 helicopters hovering over your house, at 3 a.m. in the morning. that's going to affect your pillar of sleep, but that's a systems level change, right? That needs to be brought up to governmental leadership at the city level. Maybe air pollution, right? You're outside working out, you're doing what you can, but maybe there's air pollution, which does affect brain health. Maybe not no access to the arts. We now have tons of research saying that you using arts as a proactive brain skill, but also people with dealing with brain disorders using arts as a way to address the progression of the brain disorders like Parkinson's disease, and using dance for that, and using music for other things, and drawing and theater. And so, what does it look like when it's a systems level issue that these resources aren't available to the whole community, right? And so, I want you to look at this, that a lot of these pillars seem like individual choices, right? But these individual choices are affected by the systems that they're in. And this is where our policy work comes to be. And so I want you to think about this question. Feel free to pause the video, and you should have your journal or your notebook out. Think about this question about your own journey with speaking truth to leadership, speaking truth to power, speaking to anyone, speaking to a small group of people, speaking to a large group, and then speaking to leadership, people who clearly have an authoritative role. How do you feel about that? Are you nervous? Do you do it all the time? All of us are in different levels. So take the time to pause the video now, and you can journal that out. Awesome. So reflection is key. One of my philosophers that I study is John Locke, and he said the great way to great ideas is sensation, right? Sensing and going through the experience of whatever you're learning, but also reflection. And a lot of times we don't stop and reflect, which is going to be a huge issue if AI comes in and we're not aware of the things we still have to keep doing, and things we have to keep sacred. So reflection are one of those things that we have to keep sacred. So I hope you had a chance to reflect about your own journey with speaking truth to leadership and truth to power. And this is myself in Washington, D.C., which we will talk about a little later. All right, so the reason why I bring that up is because your brain is like this tree. Trees grow around whatever they're around. They're very agile. They will, if you look at the trees, if you're around areas that has a lot of trees, certain types of trees, they grow in different directions. I call them like they're frozen in their dance pose. And if you see, this tree grew around this particular grave site. Your brain is like the same thing. It changes depending on the experiences that you give it. And so if you start to incorporate policy experiences into your regular life, your brain will grow around that. If you're just sitting on your screens all day and not really just scrolling, your brain will grow around that, right? All the experiences we do affect the way that our brain builds up resilience and builds up familiarity. So if I make what we're about to talk today and with our guests familiar, your brain will build around that and it'll become second nature. Now I just go into meet with my representatives like I'm going to, go talk to my mom. It's just what I do. But the first time, a little bit daunting. And so that's why I'm so glad you're here to just start that first step. For some of you have already did this. And so before we bring Dr. Krystal onto the platform to talk a little bit more about the power of your brain and what you're going to be focused on, this is leadership. Leadership is changing in this new era of technology, AI, brain health, and brain capital. This is a global movement. And so as I'm an elementary educator by trade, so I'm always aware of what does this mean for the children? If we're passing this bill, what does that mean for the children, right? Sweden, they have to ask that question before any bill gets passed. What does this mean for the children? I think all nations should do that, but I believe Sweden or Copenhagen area. They do that, and I love that because it's true. All of the things, the bills that we pass and that you'll be seeing affect the children. And so, as far as the children's leadership skills that they need and that we need to retool ourselves with, us adults, creativity, creative thinking, new ideas, time to give your brain new ideas, curiosity, questioning. What type of questioning? How deep are the questionings? How diverse are the questions? Communication, diverse communications. Are you talking to everyone who's like you, or are you getting out there and diversifying your experiences? Are you getting out there and communicating to people around the world? That's why I love Zoom now, because I can talk to people in Africa like it's nothing. But I didn't really do that at all before the pandemic, because then the pandemic kind of forced everyone on Zoom, and I was like, oh wow, this is so great. Resilience and regeneration, not to just be resilient, but also to regenerate, which is to go even further beyond where you already were. That is the leadership skill. Adaptation and prediction. Your brain's a predicting organ, but what does it look like to understand that it's trying to predict and trying to tell you what it sees? And also, how do you adapt? And you're very sensitive to the trends, to the data out there, and you can adapt. And that's what my company does and our nonprofit does. We're aware of what the needs are of the people depending on what is coming online. And this is really a big reason why we're here, connection and influence. You may have good ideas. You may have just a wonderful cause that you're passionate about, but it's just going to be your cause if you have no ability to connect and then to influence. And so that's what these training courses are about. And then how do we integrate this into our curriculum for our students? Do they know how to influence groups of people? And so a big part of that is your brain. And so I just want to bring to the stage Dr. Krystal. She is one of our best speakers, and we thank you for being here, and take it away, Dr. Krystal Cullen.
Thank you. I am going to try my best to answer two of the key questions for why we are here today. And I thought I'd keep it very simple as we're covering, I think, the 5 basic W questions of what is brain health and why it cannot wait. And so I will do my best to tackle that with our time together. One of the first things I'd like you to think about, and Janine's mentioned the journal that you may have, is why does brain health matter? And you might reflect on this for yourself, is why does brain health matter to you or your loved ones or the community that you're in? Perhaps it's the community that you serve. We all have a different why, but you might want to really think about, why does this matter particularly to yourself? And I'm going to lay a bit of the groundwork. So I want to take us a big picture, and then I'm going to bring us down to a little bit more local of why is this brain health picture so important to this big conversation. So let's start really broad. Brain health conditions impact 1 in 3 people across the world. And this involves a very large cluster of 37 different brain conditions. This can be neurological conditions, your neurodegenerative diseases, your large mental health conditions, anxiety, depression, as long as leading causes of disabilities like stroke. I'll get into these on some next slides, but I wanted to bring these top of mind. So you may be thinking about yourself, your loved ones, your immediate network, people you know that live with something or manage something that is related to their brain. Mental health, neurodegenerative disease, developmental disabilities as well, or developmental disorders, something related to the brain, 1 in 3 people. This is not uncommon across the world. So what does this look like if we bring it back from the world now? Let's talk about the United States. So I want you to pay attention to this graph. If you look coming down the side over there, this is by age group. So our youngest minds are up at the top, age 5. And then we're going to go down that chart down to age 95. If you want to look at the orange. So we're looking at in the orange bar graph, that's neurological disorders by numbers. And this is grouped together, both sexes. But if you're just looking at what do brain conditions look like across ages, you can look at that. It goes roughly about every 4 years, age group. So youngest minds to oldest minds. And look at the orange bar graph and how that impacts from young age groups all the way up to older age groups and how much bigger the orange bars continue to get. So neurological disorders impact all ages in the United States. It continues to become more prevalent. And we see this impacts in the United States. Our largest age group or greatest burden is ages 70 to 74. And so I just wanted to point out when we talk about brain health is for everyone, brain health is for all ages and stages of life. Brain conditions impact all minds of all ages. You can see how this starts to play out. We can see the numbers of people being impacted. That's the lower number at the bar graph of the number of brains across these age groups being impacted. The orange is your neurological disorders. The blue bar next to that orange bar includes your mental disorders. So those would both fall under your bigger brain health issues. So there's a lot of brains that we are talking about under this brain health conversation. And it is getting larger across age groups. You can even see the younger minds, the conversation coming online of neurological disorders and mental disorders. So this is why we're talking about all ages and all stages of life here in the US. And if we just want to make this more practical, survey data from the Dana Foundation shows brain health is a conversation for 8 in 10 Americans. So 80% of us say we ourselves are directly impacted by a brain health concern or our loved ones are. And what does that look like? Your common mental health conditions, depression, anxiety, your neurodegenerative diseases or disorders, that would be your Alzheimer's disease, your Parkinson's, and then other brain health concerns that you hear about, individuals having stroke, epilepsy, and seizures, and then those other broader brain health concerns. So that would be similar to the earlier slide where we see 37 brain health conditions. These are the more common ones. So if you were thinking about earlier where you may have journaled, what does brain health mean to you? This may have been something that you may have reflected for yourself, your loved ones, or community. And this is why we're having the conversation of how many of us are directly impacted by brain health. So the next thing I'll ask is, what comes to your mind when you hear the words brain health? You may reflect, is it action steps? Are there certain key words that pop to mind? You can go ahead and make note of those. There may be a phrase. There may be things you want to do to take action for your brain health. But this is my second call to action, is to define what is brain health for you. And this has been a working definition that has really changed over the last few years. But very broadly, your brain health is involved in everything we think, feel, do, and say. So you might actually be wondering, well, what isn't involved in your brain health at this point? And that's a very fair question, and we're going to get into some of that, but brain health is very broad. Good brain health is a state in which every individual gets to realize their own abilities and optimize their cognitive, emotional, psychological, and behavioral functioning to cope with life situations. And this definition is even broadened to say, irregardless if they live with a neurological condition or a mental health condition. So it doesn't matter if you have any type of diagnosis related to your brain. Every person has a right to good brain health. At the Virtual Brain Health Center, we like to simply say, brain health is your brain's ability to grow strong and thrive at any age. In brain health, we talk about really, is it influenced by two things? We either say it's influenced by a risk factor, which is anything that has an adverse impact on your brain. That's why I like to say it's in red. It's usually a warning sign or a caution. We know to stop. Typically, if we see something red, red makes us pause and reflect. So these would be things that have a negative impact: smoking, social isolation, sedentary lifestyles, poor dietary habits, risk factors. And then we talk about things that are protective risk factors, which I have in green. Usually green means us is the go ahead. These things are green, good for the brain, things that give us protection. It's the opposite of a risk factor. It's your social connection, good sleep, moving your body, good nutrition, and hydration. So if you're thinking about perhaps maybe what you've reflected on of what came to mind when you heard brain health, perhaps the protective factors are on the list for you. These may be things where you invest your time and your energy into your own brain health and well-being. Research shows from the Lancet Commission that there are 14 main factors that a lot of our policy looks into to prevent or delay dementia risk in our brain health. I like this model from shows it the easiest way, I think, for people to be able to look at quickly to highlight. These are the main 14 risk factors that we invest in through a lot of policy for dementia risk factors and brain health. On the top line, if you look, I have the purple arrow. It shows the life course of these are risk factors that come on early in life, midlife, and then later life. Really, the earliest risk factor that we have found that seems to have the largest investment is quality of education. Midlife is where most of the risk factors have the investment. It's because we spend the bulk of our life in our midlife. It's the largest age range, mainly because we say midlife is between the age of 30 to 70. So you can see that's the bulk of our years. And then later life tends to be beyond those years, usually 65 and above. So later years of life are in that kind of marigold color. But if you look towards the bottom, if we focus on these 14 risk factors, we can mitigate about 45% of global cases of dementia worldwide. And this is why a lot of public policy focuses on these main risk factors. It comes from a lot of the Lancet Commission dementia reports, which we put out every few years, and we update based on the latest research. The two purple arrows on the screen point to high cholesterol and uncorrected visual impairment. Those are the two latest risk factors that were recently added. So every couple of years, when we get enough more research, we try to say there are newer risk factors where we want to invest more public policy and dollars into funding to try to help mitigate risk factors. So those are the newer ones that have come online to this conversation around brain health. And I'd like to mention, these are not the only ones that we say. These are ones that tend to lead a lot of policy discussions in brain health, but there are a lot more. So I thought I would end the conversation today. Janine already mentioned Sweden. They had a national dementia plan and brain health plan in place. And this is the model that I wanted to show, where they kind of take together of what are those protection factors that they have around brain health. And they have your brain in the center of this model. They have those protection factors in place. You may see just from the icons on the screen quickly of some of those risk factors. And then what is the plan that they start to put into policy? And this starts to put in what Janine's talking about today of you have brain health plus brain skills coming around this idea of brain capital. And where do we start to put policy together? And this is a visual of that, of how do we start to put things into action and into place. And I thought this was a nice visual to help transition of now that we have just a little bit of the basics and the highlights of why is brain health important? What does brain health really mean? We can transition to the rest of the conversation today of how do we start to put this into place? Who are we talking to in our communities, and when do we go about this? And what are the roles that we can take as, community advocates to make brain health and action to where we are and why these things are important to us. And so I thought this would be a nice summary. And I wanted to point out of why this conversation is so timely is we've had reports come out where brain health is the next frontier of healthcare, and we don't have to wait for a miracle drug. The breakthrough is at our fingertips, which is scalable and available to everyone, is applying what we already know. The daily behaviors can improve our brain health, and making even small daily changes can transform what's possible for our brain now and decades from now. This is the call to action. It's happening now in policy, in places, in our schools, in our communities. We're seeing this happen, and we all get to do this through the lives we live. We can take action for our brain health, but we need a lot more support behind it to really drive the change. And this is the call for action from the federal policy of brain health, and this is starting to trickle down for the community. But the vision is that everyone deserves a life with the healthiest brain possible. And I hope that will carry forward in the rest of the conversation today.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much for this. Appreciate it. Wonderful. I hope you got some wonderful nuggets, and thank you for connecting it back to the policy work. All right, so so I'm going to share my screen again. All right, let's look at that. Thank you, Dr. Krystal. Excited to continue to have your work be a part of the movement. We are looking now at taking everything she said and say, okay, well, what does this look like? This is great for me at the individual level. I can look at the information that we need to implement this in our life, but how do I really gain that voice, that political voice, to really bring this to other levels of our community? So let's share. Do you see my slides now? And you should just see the main slide.
Yeah, it's just a slideshow.
Yes, but you don't see me, so let me pin myself. There we go. All right, do you see me now? Wonderful. All right, so this is something that you should have learned in elementary school, especially for those of you who are in the United States of America. This is around 3rd, 4th grade curriculum where you learn the levels of your government, your branches, right? The branches, and I love that analogy like a tree because I've been just fixated with trees and fascinated with how trees are made and the carbon from the carbon dioxide. And trees are very magical. Please go out and touch a tree, sit under a tree, read a tree. But your government is a tree as well. And so your government has 3 branches, and you have and your government has 3 levels, more or less. So you're looking at the levels of local city government, your state government, and your federal government, the national government. I use the word national in this class, but federal as well. And then it has 3 areas in each of those governments. You have your legislative branch, which makes laws. You have your executive branch, which is that executive level that enforces the laws, and then you have your judicial branch, which interprets the laws. Those are your judges, your courts, different levels of courts, and of course the top court, your Supreme Court at the federal level, and then you have your state courts, and then you have your city courts. And so what we'll be talking about is the 3 different levels of government: the local, state, and federal, but mostly focusing on the legislative branch. I do mention your mayor every now and then, but I don't expect you to go try to have an appointment with the President of the United States. You're more than welcome to try, but that's not the point of this course. And so be aware of that. Normally in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, whenever you got this information, it stopped there. It did not tell you how to engage with them. It just showed you the 3 levels. And so legislative is where we're going to keep the education going that we should not have stopped in your K-12 education. So the first question is, and I'm going to have you pause the video and write in your journal, what is your cause? What gets you out of bed in the morning? A lot of you just you have your job or your employment. Some of you are self-employed or you're entrepreneurs. Some of you are students. Some of you are interns. You have different things going on. But what is that cause that revs your heart up? Right? For me, it was creative thinking and the arts. I believe all people, especially children, should have access to the arts and have access to think creatively in every aspect of their life. And then brain health and brain anatomy went seeped into that. That is my cause. If you look me up on internet, you'll see me talking about creativity, right? Artistry and brain. I love the whales, but you won't see me talking about saving the whales. I love hiking, but you won't see me about talking about that as far as my cause work, right? So really take this time, pause the video, and if you haven't thought about it, what is your cause? And the question that will spur that is what is your ought that you see. So you see something like, somebody ought to do something about that. Somebody ought to do something about the fact that, some kids have music and some kids don't. Some kids have dance and some kids don't. Someone ought to do something. So that was my ought. What is your ought? Pause the video and take some time to reflect and think about that. All right, so hopefully you have some thoughts down. Some of you have already thought about this, but some of you haven't been prompted at all, which is not good. And we want to change that in our school system to have kids thinking about this earlier in life. What really moves me? What could I think I could do something about, or what really offends me that I just don't want to be angry at this thing, but I actually want to put together forth a solution. So what is your ought? And then how do you bring your ought to your leaders? So here is the book. Finding your representative at the city, the state, and the federal or national level. That is in my city. I am in the city near Phoenix, Arizona, a city called Avondale. And so looking at your city level, if you're just starting out on your political just experience, your political journey, this is a great level to start off. This is a picture of us getting a proclamation in the city of Avondale for World Brain Day on July 22nd. And so here are some things that you can do at your city level. Once you have thought about your cause, right, your main thing that you want to work on, do a little bit of research about, and then present to your local government, you can go on your website, on your computer, and look up their website. Go and poke around your city's website. Go to the different events. Go to the Parks and Rec. Go to the government, and go to just the different areas that they have, and get to know your city online, right? And so you'll see here you have residents, business, community, the government. And here are a few action points that you can do. Becoming active at your city level. They're right there. You shouldn't have to drive an hour to do this because they should be in your city. First, become aware of city events. Become active. This is not only good for your political growth, and your advocacy, your policy advocacy work, but this is good for your brain. Getting out there, experiencing different types of events, different genres of events. If they have a cowboy hoedown and you don't normally listen to country music, go and just experience it. Your brain will thank you for that. I'm a big person about signing up for the newsletters and what's going on in your area, and your Parks and Rec. They are in charge of your recreation, so you can see what type of social events are in your area. Here's another thing you may not realize that your city might have, and you'll have to check. When you were in high school or in college, sometimes your teachers set aside times for the students to come and meet with them. We call them office hours at the university level and things like that. Well, your city might have office hours as well. Did you look up any type of coffee with the mayor or coffee with your representative? See if that is an option. And if it's not, then we'll go to the next level of actually making an appointment. Attend your civic meetings. your city government, right? The small group of people who are in charge of handling all the revenue coming in, handling the businesses, and laying out the laws of the city, they have to meet on a regular schedule. A lot of those meetings are open to the public. Once again, if this is not your cup of tea, totally understand. A lot of times they're talking about these big numbers or things that we're not even aware of, but just to go for once, just to see how it is. Number one, it helps your brain health because you're putting yourself in a new situation. And number two, it allows you to just show up. They see you there. And once you start meeting with them and introducing yourself, they'll see you as a staple in the community, especially for those of you who are really trying to get things moving and be an influential voice at the city level. You just showing up at the meetings is the first step. You don't even have to say anything. You don't have to request to speak. Just show up and be there in the room, in the presence. That's the first step, because they'll start to notice when you are showing up at these events. And that's why I said be on the newsletters for their Parks and Recs events, because a lot of the city council members go to their city events to show up for their job. They have to be active in the community and show the community that they're attending these community events. But when they see you, when you introduce yourself to them, you don't have to even say much. Just, hi, I'm a part of your city. Thank you for having these events. And just whatever else you want to say. So attend the city council meetings. See if you have a coffee with the leadership, the mayor, whoever, and you can join your local chamber, especially if you're an entrepreneur as well. And don't forget to vote. A lot of us still pay attention only to the national presidential election voting when you have city level voting as well. So if you don't know how to get involved in that, go to the city office and ask them, how do I become a voter registrant at the city level? What are the dates? Where should I go? Can I do a at-home voting ballot? Get information. They will answer your questions, but you sometimes have to go and ask or go online and find out that information. Your vote matters. Your voice matters. They start with a V. Bring in the peace with your voice and your vote. And Dr. Krystal and Manasvi, if you want to jump in and add anything or let me know, and you're more than welcome to as well. All right, so I'm all about accountability, and then we want to say, okay, if this is some things that I can do, feel free to take a screenshot of that or pause the video and write down some of the things right here. What will I do now, and who will I share this with to be accountable? So all on the list that you get in this course, what's one thing that you would do? You know what? I'm gonna sign up for the newsletter of my mayor and the Parks and Rec today. That's what I'm going to do today. You know what? Next week, I'm going to try to attend one city council meeting a quarter. I'm going to put that on my list today. And actually, I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to Janine as well, because I should be doing this too. I'm doing a lot of this stuff, but I was like, you know what? I should go to. I go to the state meetings, but I haven't attended my own city council meeting. So I'm going to put that on my list, and Dr. Krystal will keep me accountable as well. And so what are you going to do if you are physically and schedule-wise able to? All right. And so what will you do? When will you do it? So within the next week, I will look at up the city council meetings, and I will sign up for a meeting. And with who? This is great information for you, but if you can bring a friend and educate a friend along with you, even better. I'm all about educating the masses, and when you ripple out affect what you're learning, you're helping other people gain power, gain a stronger brain, and gain experience in this as well. So you can pause the video and respond to these questions now. All right, so hopefully you did that, and I love the fact that we have the amazing Manasvi here and to share her work and to share what she's doing, and that she is representing a different generation. You know, I was born at the end of the 70s. She totally missed the 70s and the 80s and probably the 90s. And she was probably born after 2000. And so she's experiencing the world differently than I am, who had a different upbringing and just different concerns. And so I wanted to bring her to the table to be a voice for her generation. So come on to the stage, and let's pin you. There you go. And I'm going to unpin myself. And you can come off mute. And go.
Hi, Janine. So, yeah, you were right. I was born in the 2010. And yeah, I can just continue with my speech. So, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me here. So, my name is Manasvi Sharma, and I am the founder and director of the Mind Initiative. We are a youth-led organization dedicated to advancing adolescent and intergenerational focus on mental and brain health through prevention, education, and advocacy. So, when people hear the term brain health, they often think about innovation, economic growth, workforce development, or educational achievement. But as a student, I see brain capital much earlier in the pipeline. I see it in a teenager who is struggling with stress but doesn't know how to talk about it. I see it in the student who begins withdrawing from friends, sleeping less, losing motivation, or turning to unhealthy coping mechanisms. I see it in the countless young people trying to navigate adolescence without fully understanding what's happening in their own brains. To me, brain capital begins long before somebody enters the workforce. It begins with whether young people have the knowledge, support, and skills necessary to work their well-being while their brains are still developing. That's what led me to start the Mind Initiative. Over the last decade, schools have made real progress in mental health awareness. Students are taught that mental health matters. Schools host wellness weeks, assemblies, presentations, and campaigns that are encouraging students to seek help. There are counselors, hotlines, therapists, and support resources which are more available than ever. And yet, still, many adolescents continue to struggle in silence. Students don't often seek support until they are really that overwhelmed, and distress still remains hidden. Then we have these unhealthy coping mechanisms that are developing privately throughout the process of stress. An intervention frequently occurs after the problem has escalated. So we are still focusing on the cure, not the prevention. So the question is not whether resources exist, it's why students often don't use them until it's too late. As I looked into this more through neuroscience, public health, and just the conversations with my own peers, I realized something important. I realized that mental health systems and brain health systems are still reactive. Support usually begins after a student identifies themselves as struggling, or reaches a crisis point, or receives a referral, or actively asks for help. But mental health challenges rarely begin with a crisis. They begin with behavior. Long before someone reaches out for support, there are subtle shifts like avoidance, social withdrawal, sleep disruption, academic disengagement, emotional suppression, and many more, even burnout. These are often dismissed as normal parts of adolescence. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're early indicators of declining well being. And by the time many students recognize that something is wrong, they've already been struggling for weeks, months, or even years. And that's the gap the Mind Initiative was built to close. We believe there's a missing layer in youth mental health, behavioral prevention. Schools and students are taught where to get help, but they're rarely taught to recognize when they need it in the first place. what behavioral patterns to pay attention to, how stress actually influences decision making, and what early action looks like before things escalate. Knowing where to get help matters, definitely, but knowing when matters just as much. At the Mind Initiative, we pursue this mission through three pillars: education, resources, and advocacy. So, firstly, let's jump to our first pillar, which is education. Most mental health and brain health education focuses on awareness. We focus on understanding, and we help students understand how stress influences behavior, how habits come, and how decision making changes under pressure. Our goal is to translate neuroscience and public health research into something practical and relatable for young people. Obviously, not just lecture them, but actually explain what's happening in their own heads. Secondly, we have resources. Through my journey and my peers, we have realized that awareness isn't enough if students don't know what to do next. So we built accessible tools that help young people recognize challenges early and respond effectively. Third, we have advocacy. We believe young people deserve a seat at the table where decisions are made about their own well being. That means bringing youth perspectives into conversations about mental health, brain health, prevention, and public policy. Not just being talked about, but being part of the conversation. I want to ground this in something real because it's easier to talk about the pillars in abstract. So, a few months ago, we released Chasing Grief, and it's basically a science style booklet that follows a fictional teen named Jay as he navigates academic stress, peer pressure, and nicotine addiction. We made it a story on purpose because teens don't respond to lectures about the dangers of nicotine. They respond to seeing themselves in a character who's stressed about the test, getting pressure from friends, and reaching out for something that feels like relief in the moment, and then showing through Jay's story what's actually happening in his brain when he relies on nicotine. Chasing Relief blends that storytelling with real science, so tobacco and mental health education feels genuinely relevant instead of feeling like another poster in a hallway. It's a free resource, so you can check it out at our website as well. We distribute it to local libraries and schools, and it's also being shared digitally through networks connected to the Santa Clara County Department of Public Health and Department of Education. And this means that this isn't just something we made for ourselves, it's actively reaching students through public health infrastructure right now. And that's what resources looks like when education actually turns into something in someone's hands. Also, something I've learned this year is education and resources aren't enough on their own. If we want prevention to actually become the norm, we have to think beyond individual students and start thinking about systems. And that's where advocacy comes in. And that's where this work has started to go somewhere I didn't expect a year ago. So earlier this year, I talked to Janine, and she encouraged me to think about civic engagement in a very practical way. One of her suggestions was to pursue a city proclamation recognizing the importance of youth mental health and brain health in our community. It sounded simple, but it reframed advocacy for me. Advocacy doesn't have to start with a major legislation. Sometimes it starts with a conversation or building a relationship and helping a local leader see an issue that already matters in their community. So I went ahead, I took her advice, and I ran with it. As a result, the Mind Initiative has booked a meeting with California Assembly member Gil Pellerin happening in a few weeks. When I go to that meeting, I am not going to go empty-handed. I'm bringing Chasing Relief and the work that we've built so the Assembly member can see for herself what youth-led prevention looks like, not just hear me describe it. Honestly, if you told me a year ago that I'd be sitting down with a state assembly member to talk about youth mental health policy, I would not have believed you. But that's what's exciting about this work. Young people have perspectives that deserve to be part of these conversations, and increasingly, decision makers are willing to listen if you show up prepared. And to me, that's what brain capital is ultimately about. It's not about maximizing human potential, it is protecting it. It's about recognizing that early brains are the foundation of healthy communities and investing in young people before they reach a crisis point, not just after. Every student who learns to recognize stress earlier, every young person who develops healthier coping strategies, and every school, family, or county department that helps a free resource like Chasing Relief reach students who need it, that's brain capital being built in real time. The future of youth mental health can't be solely reactive, it has to be preventative. And if we want to invest in the next generation, we have to start by helping young people understand the patterns that shape their own well being long before intervention becomes urgent. And that's the future the Mind Initiative is working toward. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so very much for that wonderful voice that you are for your generation. And so we're going to continue. We talked about the importance of doing work at the city level, starting there. And she talked about wonderful examples of what it looks like to just get started. And once again, I love the fact that she's a voice for her age, and for her generation, because it shows you that you can do it. And some of you may have seen pictures of my son earlier, and he even met with a few of his centers, and he was 7 and 8. And so anyone can get started at any time. You know, you can bring your little toddlers up to the advocacy day. They had that for the early childhood, where they had the little toddlers out there in their little podium talking about early childhood education and advocating for that. So it's never too early to know how to engage with your civic leaders. So thank you so much for that. And she did talk about the proclamation, and I want to make sure that people understand about the power of that's the first easiest thing to do. A lot of your city governments have on their website an opportunity to request. It won't always go through, especially if it's something like random, like Red Sox Day or something like that. But you can request a proclamation for your cause, right? And so we got a few. We have proclaiming World Brain Day in the city of Avondale, Arizona. We also got the very first national, maybe even global, but National Brain Capital Awareness Month for the city of Buckeye and the city of Phoenix, Arizona. And so Lyrics and Leadership for Brain Health and myself and Sean, we submitted for those for the World Brain Day of last year, 2025. And so just filled out a form. You can fill out a form, and if it's in alignment with the city's goals and alignment with the community health or safety or whatever cause that the city can align itself with. I've even seen a few funny ones like proclaim it's National Donut Day or whatever. Don't eat too many donuts, too much sugar. But I have seen just random proclamations, and I've seen some very serious ones, you know, like human trafficking awareness. And so they go along the whole gamut. But whatever your cause is about, see if there is a proclamation on it already. If there is, then you might not be able to do it. But if it's a new idea, like Brain Capital Awareness Month, we were able to get that. And so I'm so glad that she brought that up, and we could have that be one of your toolkits or one of your action points if that is something that you would like to do. My son and I, he is looking to help propose a bill for helmet safety for children in the state of Arizona. About half the states in around the nation do not have laws about children wearing helmets on their bikes, their e-bikes and things like that. And so that's one thing that we're looking at. Another thing you can see here is we'll talk about that at the state level. You see him in the House of Representatives floor, right? The first picture, he's actually physically on the floor. They only allow you to do that if you have someone escorting you there. So just don't go in there and run on the floor because you'll get in trouble. But if you meet with a representative or a senator and they can walk you on the floor and show you around. So he's with Senator Bliss and, Representative Bliss. No, that I need to see who that is because we met like 12 in one day, so a lot of the names. But we met with the representatives for the state of Arizona, and then we sat and we are in the area where they are voting on certain bills. And so the first step, so that's the city level that we talked about before. She came on to talk about the Mind Initiative with the city. This is the state. Now, I'm going to be very vulnerable and say I was unaware of all of the levels. So I'm in my 40s and I'm learning this. And I should have learned it when I was her age. And that's why we're doing this today, because of me saying, I ought to have learned this. So why don't I do something to make sure other people are not in my position and totally unaware of this until they're in their 40s. They should be aware of this before they exit high school. And even in middle school, kids should learn how to engage. And so the one thing you have to be aware of is, where do you live and who represents the area that you live in, right? They are working for you. We need to reframe that, right? I'm all about framing things, cognitive reframing, and look at the frames of your situation. How are you perceiving an event? You need to reframe your political leaders. You may think they're in the roles of authority. You may be nervous when you're meeting with them, but they work for you, right? Your parents, your grandparents, your community members, they voted them in. So they are at your beck and call, right? But so they are working for you. And so you need to see who is your particular person who is supposed to be representing your voice. I am in District 22. I love the number 22. There's 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and it means the end and the beginning, and just refreshness and creativity. So I love that I'm in District 22. So I need to see who was representing District 22. Once I do that, right, and you can go online to your state government website, type in the search or even the Google search, who represents the city, your zip code in your state, right? Who is my state representatives? And then you have to understand there's two types of groups of people who are representing you. You have your House of Representatives and you have your Senate. Okay, your Senate and your House, and they're two parts of the legislative branch. So you have three branches. If you remember, your executive, your judicial branch, the judges, your executive, the mayor or the governor or the president, and then you have your legislative branch, which is separated into two groups: your House of Representatives and your senators, your state Senate. And so you need to see who's representing me in my state Senate and who's representing me in my House. In the state of Arizona, I believe it's the same around, but I'm not sure. But in the state of Arizona, you have two senators. That's the same for all states. Or you have two state senators. I'm not talking about federal yet. You have two state senators. And then in Arizona, you have two representatives in your House of Representatives for your state level. Now, I was being vulnerable. I totally mixed up state and federal, and I was like, wait, but Senator Kelly and Senator Gallegos are our senators, but now you're saying there's Senator Sears and Senator Bliss. Wait, what? What's going on? And my cousin, who is a lawyer on the Hill, Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., she had to sit me down and re-explain everything. And I was just like, oh my goodness, why don't I know this? And so that's why I'm explaining it to you. So figure out who are your state representatives, not your national, your state representatives in the state Senate and the state of House. You can go online on your state government webpage and type in your zip code, and you should be able to see who is representing you. All right. So you can write that down in your journal. Who represents me? Senate. You should have two names, and representatives, you should have two or more names. I don't know if other states have more than two, but in the state of Arizona, we have two per each. Yes. Yes. Two senators per each, believe. Now that might change in other states, but that is what we have here. Awesome. All right. So over here, your House of Representatives are here. So this is once again my state level. This is the Arizona site. And as you see here, they have the emails. So all of them should have email access. They even have phones, the phone numbers, and they have the rooms. Please know that they have assistants. So when you reach out, you're more than likely will get their assistant or the person who schedules for them. And so be mindful that that is totally okay. That if you meet their assistants instead of them. Awesome. And so, yes, so that's the main thing I want you to be aware of, to see who your state senators are. We have two here, and then we have at least two. I believe we have just two for our House of Reps. See how many you have in your state. It may fluctuate based on population. I'm not sure how that's laid out in your state, but your website should be able to tell you everything. All right, so here is your checklist for your state level. You had your checklist for your city level, and when you're going to do what? Visit a city council meeting, see if you can have coffee with the mayor, just say hi and talk to you about their cause. We're going to talk about that in our next session about how you do that. And then become aware of your state events and your advocacy days. As you heard me say earlier, we had toddlers at the state capitol because the Early Childhood Education Advocacy Day was at the end of January or some sort. So a lot of the organizations that really pull for early childhood education, they got together and they had different events or different speakers and panels at the capitol. And then they encourage the people, if you're going to be here, please set up a meeting with your state senator and your House of Representatives rep, and talk to them about the importance of early childhood education. And then they gave you a few talking points and a call to action. At the end of March, we had the arts advocacy groups do the same thing. They had a wonderful presentation to gear us up to get ready. And I made just appointments with a lot of senators, even senators who were not a part of my district. I'd like to talk to everybody. And we did that. And while we were going and meeting them inside, people were having different events outside on the state capitol lawn. And so see if your state does that. Whatever your cause is about, maybe you care about environmental things, you care about the whales. You hear me? I keep talking about the whales and dolphins. They're great. But whatever your cause is about, whether it's brain health, or education, dementia care, and all Alzheimer's prevention, environmental, the animals, clean energy, whatever your cause is about, there's probably an advocacy group that would put together an event around that. If you just tag on to them, it's a great way to get introduced to the process. And that was a wonderful way that I got introduced to the process, by attending the Early Childhood Advocacy Day in the state of Arizona, and then attending the Arts Advocacy Day within the state of Arizona. And I went through all of their webinars and stuff, and I really got equipped with what I could do. And now I'm trying to put it together for us and to teach other people. Sign up for your representatives newsletters. That's the easiest thing. That's the easiest call to action that you all can do today. And request to meet with your state senator and your state's rep. If they are able to meet with you, which I met a lot with mine one-on-one, go for it. You're more likely to meet with your state senator and your state House of Reps than you are at the national level. So be mindful of that. And so go for the state level, go for the city and state first, get your feet wet, do this on a regular basis. Here's another list. Let me see. And so you can do that. And if they are busy and you can meet with their policy advisors or their assistants, do that as well. Just get in the door. Another aspect you want to be mindful about is the committees, right? Shout out to Alex, who's an amazing lawyer on Capitol Hill. She broke down committees for me and let me know that when they're on the Senate and when they're in the House, they have certain affinities that they're connected with. There's some who are part of the Health Committee, Education Committee, Workforce Development, Appropriations, like where does the money go, right? Water committees. There's a big thing about water in Arizona, right? Good old Colorado River. And so learn about what your cause is about, whatever it is, and who is on that committee. You will have representatives and senators who are not your representative and senators, but they are on your committee of things that you care about, right? And so with my work with brain health and brain capital, which includes the creative thinking and the social skills, I have a focus on the health committee and the education committee. So I want to see, okay, who are the people on the health committees and who are the people on the education committee? Because that's who I want to connect with and have them learn about the work we're doing and have them read my white paper, right? I sent the white paper on brain capital arts to them. Whether they read it or not, I don't know, but at least I made contact and I'm trying to make them aware of the brain capital movement that's happening on the national and global level. The first thing I'm going to do is go to the people on these committees because they're already focused on that topic. Okay, I'm not going to go to someone who is on the environmental committee because they may not have a big pull in the health area. And then the other aspect is your bipartisan awareness. Now, we live in a very sadly divided world, and Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Independent, I don't know what's going on there, but things are very polarized. And so with the topic of brain capital, I need bipartisan support. I need the red, the blues, the purple. This is a purple issue, okay? This is everyone. I tell people if you have a brain, then you should care about the brain health movement and brain capital movement in your state. And so I am very particular about making sure I'm connecting with people on both sides of the aisle. And so be mindful of that as well. Look to see what their affiliation with, are you just talking to Democrats? Are you just talking to Republicans? Or are you making this topic, your cause, aware to both sides? And so be mindful of that. Committees and bipartisan support is what you want to be aware of. And so here, like I said, you see Sean at a meeting. Thank goodness when we went there and he sat down to listen, they were talking about a wolf in a certain area or something. So I was glad that they were talking about something that he can actually physically understand about a bill being passed about the wolves in the mountains or something, as opposed to like a healthcare bill of something that would have went over his head. And so that was good for him to really follow along the conversation of the bill being proposed, and then certain people standing up in support of it, and certain people standing up in not in support of it as well. And we got to see that firsthand. And so that's wonderful for you to do, but also for those of you who have dependents or peers or classrooms, to have them be exposed to these types of meetings. Anyone can come up and sit in the balcony and listen. So be aware. At the state level, meet with your policy advisors and the team if you're not able to meet with the main senator or rep. Learn the committees that I just explained. Learn who is on the committees and the level of leadership. You have the director of the committee, right? and the people who lead, try to meet with them because they have a more of an authority with that committee. Know which bills are coming out that affect your cause. And if you have time, you can attend the bill meetings. Everything is online. And don't forget to vote. Don't forget to vote. I'll always bring up voting. So with this, you can pause the video if you wish. What action will you take at the state level? Now, don't feel like you have to do everything at once. To have this quarter be about the city level if you're just getting your feet wet, and then have next quarter be about the state level. Be mindful of when they're in session and when they're not in session, and also the locations. A lot of them live around the state. They may not live near the state capital. So they may have an office in your hometown if you're not near the state capital. And that is true when I talk about the federal level as well. And who will you bring with you? Once again, don't just use this information for you. You are a powerful component when you take what you're learning today with me and sharing it with a peer. Or a family member or a child, for those of you who are raising children, or you have caretaking and dependents who could learn this as well. All right, so lastly, really quick, your national level. This is me with Senator Gallegos on the outside, and in the middle with Senator Kelly, and we gave him one of our brain health books as well. And I say, hey, go for it. Just email the office and say, hey, I'm concerned about the brain health or whatever your cause is, and I would love to set up a meeting with either you or your team to discuss the status of brain health or whatever it is. And then they will schedule you in. It may not be with the actual senator. So this is the federal level, and these are the senators and the representatives that go to Washington, D.C. to represent your state. Okay. And so I say I have one foot in California and one foot in Arizona because I lived my entire life in California. So I'm very much aware of what's going on over there. And then I'm currently in Arizona now. And so I met with them. And I didn't get to talk to Senator Gallegos. I talked more with his team, but with Senator Kelly, I flew over to Washington, D.C. for a brain health meeting. But while I was in Washington, D.C., I said, well, why don't I just try to meet with who I can? And so really take that to heart. If you're in Washington, D.C., just try to meet with folks, with people, even if you're not there to meet with them. And also for the big causes, and I think I talk about this later, see if you can attend the advocacy days on Capitol Hill. So here's your action list for the national level. If you're ready for the national scene, become aware of national advocacy days. For those of you who have the financial means to, see if you can go to DC when your cause is having an advocacy day, early childhood, brain health, Alzheimer's prevention, save the whales, clean energy, whatever the advocacy day is, there's probably some type of movement at DC. See if you can be a part of it. Of course, sign up for your newsletters. That's the quick win. That's a quick check off list. And request to meet with the national senators. You might have to meet with their reps because they're so busy, but sometimes you can sneak in there. You can get in there and they'll let you meet directly with the senators depending on how busy they are. And be aware of bills that affect your cause. Go online, see the meetings are online a lot of times. You can see them advocating for certain bills as well. So you can pause the video. And when you're ready to take it to the national level, what can you do? You can go, of course, to the website. All of your city government, your state government, and your national government, they have websites where you fill in the information, your zip code, and it takes you to who your senator is and your rep. All right. And so go check out their website. That's the first place you go. And that's where you sign up for their newsletters as well. And scan them when they come in. You should know what's going on in your city, your state, and your national rep. That's me, even though I don't live in California as well. I even sign up to meet with the California folks as well. And so if you're able to go to DC, go for it. And so wrapping this up, every time you do these things, you're building your brain. You're building your connectome. Your brain saying, hey, this is part of my life now. This is what I do. I just get a proclamation. It's March, so I'm going to go check in with my senators, see if they're still aware of the new advancements, especially with AI coming out. There's more data and research coming out with the effects on brain health, with brain creativity. Are my senators aware? We're having a thought leadership meeting in Arizona on July 22nd at the Capitol. Are my senators and state reps aware of what's going on? Check in. Don't forget, they work for you. Keep that in mind. That is how you're reframing this. If you are an academic or just a writer, which you all are, or you have a small paper or something, send it to them. We did our white paper on the Brain Capital Arts Plan, and I sent it to them. Just to say that I sent it to them. So as I close, I always say my third grade teacher would be very surprised to see this picture, because she had to send me to speech therapy 3 times a week. I am a stutterer. That's one of my how I identify, and now I'm a national speaker, but I stutter and things like that. And so for me to deal with and to live with a stutter and still gain the confidence to go meet with people and speak about brain health, I do it because it's my art, it's my passion, and it's my cause. And so it helps me move past my insecurities of the way I speak sometimes and move to action. And so when you really find your cause and your passion and what you're able to really advocate for, whatever insecurities you might have, you might not stutter, but it might be something else. You might deal with a shyness, or you might deal with feeling you're not, worthy or inadequate. Don't let that stop you. The more you do something, the more your neural networks line up and get familiar with that activity, and then it becomes second nature. But you have to take that first step. So don't forget, you are a diamond. When you use your voice, you are exercising your freedom that so many people gave their life in order for us to be able to speak our truth to power, speak our truth to authority, and go to our government and communicate what we need. And so, Dr. Krystal and Manasvi, please chime in. Do you have anything that you would like to add as we close? All right. Are you ready?
I was going to say, I think we covered a lot today, but I hope this inspires people that there are small action steps that we all can take, and not to negate the fact that we all have small ripples in the communities that we have, that butterfly effect, and that we all can be a small part of the change that we want to see in this brain health conversation. And no small action is too small of the change that we want to be. And I hope this starts to lay the foundation of really small, tangible things that we can do that will make the change in the communities that we are all a part of.
And before she adds in, I just want to say we and Lyrics and Leadership for Brain Health, we create lessons inspired by famous artists, and make that change. Michael Jackson, be the man in the mirror, right? Be the woman in the mirror. If you want change, just don't whine about it and complain about things not happening. This is the first step for you to make that change. All right. Do you have any closing thoughts, Manasvi?
Yeah, I think this was a great kind of meeting today. Great presentation. It was so nice to hear from all of you. And I hope you guys can this kind of encourage you to take next steps and advocate for your brain, because it's such a vital organ. And yeah, the future of mental health cannot be solely reactive. You need to speak up, express your thoughts. And as Janine said, your voice is a gem. So yeah, just go for it.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, you are a gem. Please reach out. We will have their contact information in the notes for you to reach out for them. And if you too could put that in the chat right now, that'd be great, because I can paste that over right now. And thank you. And just know your voice matters. You are a gem, and go out there and let your city government, state government, even your national federal government know who you are and that you mean business when it comes to whatever your cause is. You have a beautiful, brilliant brain. Please stay connected on JennyLetfer.com and their handles as well. Please visit the Virtual Center for Brain Health and the Institute. They have wonderful resources, especially if you're, young people who need this information. It's never too early to start building a beautiful and powerful brain. We will see you next time. Bye bye.